Good morning. I would like to start. I've written down some notes and stuff and I might get offhand a little bit after a while, but I think you'll enjoy what I have to say. First off, I'd like to take this time to start and say what a joy it was to coach a guy like Austin Elders and what he's not only meant to me, but everybody else that's probably in this room. To the family, I want you to know that you've always been our prayers. I will do the best expressing my feelings in this speech, and I hope it will bring a little comfort to everyone that's here. There was three characteristic traits that I think Austin Elders carried with him. I called him Little Man, so I have a hard time calling him Austin Elders all the time, but I'll keep that in mind. First thing about Austin was that he was an extremely hard worker and was strong-willed. Unlike most kids, he knew how to overcome adversity. He worked and he used football to do that. After his junior year, we try to sit down as assistant coaches and pretty much talk to every player that we have and set goals because from juniors they become seniors. I sat down with Austin. I'll never forget. He comes in with his goals and he wants to win a state championship, wants to win a conference championship. I said, "No, Austin, you don't understand." I said, "What we're trying to figure out is your individual goals." He looks around, as Austin normally would, and he says, "I want to be 6 foot tall, Coach." I said, let's do this. I said, let's play like we're 6 foot tall. Let's work like we're 6 foot tall, and let's just forget about what size we are. After that, Coach Stewart went out that year and got a great off-season program. These guys here, that most of them were in his grade, we lifted tires, we banged tires with sledgehammers, we picked up anything known to man that had any weight to it, and we worked extremely hard in off-season. The problem was, I told Gina, was the more that Austin worked out, the more shirts we lost. The boy would never wear a shirt once he got to off-season. And if he did, it was some rag that he had cut up and was a shirt at one time. I'll never forget, I was coming in after off-season in January. I had a meeting, and as I was coming in, the guys were just finishing up, and they were walking out. And I look over, and Austin, as he usually is, he has no T-shirt on. It's 28 degrees outside. He has flip-flops on. He's carrying his books and his pants in his hand and his shirt, and he's walking to his car. Well, I figured, heck, I've got to do something about this. I said, "Austin, what are you doing?" And before I could even get anything out of him, he said, "Coach, have you seen Tommy?" I start going through the whole Rolodex of players that we have, thinking, do I know? I give guys nicknames. I said, I've given a guy a nickname, and I forgot his name's actually Tommy. So I said, "Who's Tommy?" He goes, "Tommy Guns." And so I'm in the parking lot. As a coach, you're supposed to take care of things like that, but at the time I was laughing so hard, I just turned and walked off and hoped that he got to his car before Coach Biggs or somebody saw him. The second thing about Austin is that you can never judge a book by its cover. Jeff had mentioned a while ago, words that you see people every day that you forget to give or forget to talk about. Austin was 5'6". He used to tell me to put him in the program at 5'8", that would intimidate people. I said, "Okay, we'll do the best we possibly can." He was 5'6", and probably at the most he weighed 155 pounds, and that was after his junior year where he had worked out and really started to grow. I'll never forget, we were playing Fayetteville. At the time, Clayton Pankey was my other corner. They had 2 wide receivers. One of them was Demetrius Dean. Some of you guys know Demetrius Dean. He's at the University of Arkansas. Demetrius is probably between 6'2" and 6'3", and probably weighs, on a good day, 255, 260 pounds. They had another receiver named Chris Smith that at the time was tearing up the conference as far as yardage goes, and I decided that I was going to put Clayton on him. That left Austin on Demetrius Dean. Sunday at the meeting, we were all sitting around, and Coach Spoon, I said, "I'm going to put Pankey on that, and I'm going to put Elders on Demetrius Dean." He kind of looked at me, and he said, "Okay, he'll be all right." We went through practice that week, and I'll never forget as long as I live. We line up the first play, and Elders is in this guy's face like he's Darrelle Revis in the NFL. I mean, he is straight up on him. And I am screaming, back up, get back. Luckily, it was a run play. Demetrius came off and eventually overtook him and curled him up in a ball. My boy Austin didn't take that stuff. And you say things referees miss, but he kicks the guy. And you can still see it on film to this day. He kicks him. We get off the field on third down. He was coming off the field, and I just kind of said, Austin, come here. And I'm really yelling at him. Most of these guys have played. I'm yelling at him, say, come here, what are you doing? And he looked at me with those eyes, and he said, Coach, I'm just filling this guy out. And I said, well, what did we learn? And he said, he's extremely strong, Coach. But I think in the back of my mind, after I started thinking about that after the game and what he had said to me, because he was quick. He was quick to come back with anything. He had ideas in his head that he would come back in a snap like that with me. And I think that he did that because, number one, he was confident. He knew he had worked hard. He knew he had a big heart. And he wasn't scared of him at all. The third thing is this. Austin enjoyed every day to the fullest. Sometimes I forget about that, and sometimes a lot of people do in their life, they forget about it. That you have to enjoy every day to the fullest. It didn't matter if he was longboarding, hiking, finding exotic waterfalls that sometimes he told me were in Africa, and I know they weren't. Paintballs, extreme sports, anything like that. I remember one off season, he had a cast on his arm. I was going to ask Gina before we got up here and talked. I can't remember exactly what happened. He had a broken hand, a broken finger, something along those lines. Come in with a black eye right after that. I don't know how that happened. Probably jumping off his house into a pool or something, he had told me. Right after that, he had fallen off his longboard and had skinned himself up from the bottom of his calf all the way up his side. He looked like he must have been going 60 miles an hour. Never missed an off-season day. Still lifted weights with it. The thing I remember the most, he was always talking about how he skinned his ear, and some of you guys might remember that. He said, look how cool this is. I got a scab on my ear where I drug it. And I said, okay, just go lift weights. But I remember after every off season, we would call it up as a team. And Coach Williams would always say, especially on Thursdays or Fridays when we were letting them go for the weekend, he'd say, okay, guys, be safe like a head coach would. Be careful. And he'd say, elders, stay inside the house. And even after we did call it up, he would still call him and say, elders, I need to talk to you. I'm serious about staying in the house. Do not get hurt. Elders was the type of guy that if he saw a tree, he'd climb it. If you dared him to see how high he would go, he'd get to the top somehow. There's no doubt in my mind. I think to look back at Austin's life leaves me with a thought that Austin has taught me and each one of us here today to remember him for these things, but to carry on these things in each one of our own lives. Because he did these three things, and he did a whole lot more. I could sit up here all day and tell you stories because he was a joy to coach. On my iPhone that I carry around, which Austin, I have an iPhone 3, what Austin would always say, you need a new phone. It's way too old. It's historic. I have a prayer that I keep on there that was made famous by Paul Bear Bryant. I try to read it every day. Every time I unlock my phone, it comes on. And it's something that I try to live my life by. And it goes like this. This is the beginning of a new day. God has given me this day to use as I will. I can waste it or I can grow in its light and be of service to others. But what I do with this day is important because I have exchanged a day of my life for it. When tomorrow comes, today will be gone forever. I hope I will not regret the price I have paid for it. He was a great kid. He had qualities unlike anybody I've seen before. You know, had obstacles in his life as far as playing sports that people would look and say, hey, he's 5'6", let's go at him all day. The most amazing thing about Austin is this. He played 16 games for me. He never gave up a touchdown pass in his entire career. I have coached kids that played at Kansas State. I've coached kids that played at UCA and other division schools all around the state, all around the nation. But I've never had one do that. Now, he did give up 2, but because of penalties, were called back, and you ought to have seen his face on those, because it was always, whew. My prayers and thoughts will be with the family, and I hope that we can all carry on the characteristic traits that Austin Elders has taught us. Thank you.